The process of naming tanks can vary depending on the producer and their specific practices. In some cases, tanks may be named after military leaders, historical figures, or geographic locations. In other cases, tanks may be given alphanumeric designations that indicate their model number, generation, or other technical specifications. In general, the naming of tanks is typically determined by the organization or government that's commissioning the tank's production. This may involve input from military personnel, engineers, and other experts who have a say in the design and development of the tank. Ultimately, the decision of what to name a tank is often based on a combination of practical considerations such as ease of identification and communication and symbolic or historical significance. Let me provide a bit more information about the process of naming tanks. In some cases, tanks are named after military leaders or other individuals who are considered to be significant in the history of the military or the country that is producing the tank. For example, the British Challenger 2 tank is named after Sir Winston Churchill, who served as the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom during World War II. Similarly, the American M1 Abrams tank is named after General Creighton Abrams, who served as the commander of U.S. military forces in Vietnam. In other cases, tanks may be named after geographic locations or other symbolic references. For example, the Russian T-90 tank is named after the T-72 tank, which was named after the Ural Mountains. The Israeli Merkava tank is named after a Hebrew word meaning chariot or carriage, which is meant to evoke the idea of the tank as a modern-day chariot of war. In addition to these naming conventions, tanks may also be given alphanumeric designations that provide information about their technical specifications. For example, the American M1 Abrams tank is officially designated as the M1A2 Abrams, with the A2 indicating that it is a newer version of the tank with updated technology and features. Overall, the process of naming tanks is complex and can involve a variety of factors, including practical considerations, historical significance, and symbolic meaning. There are several other factors that can influence the naming of tanks. One important factor is the marketing strategy of the producer. Tanks are often produced by defense contractors who compete for contracts with different governments or military organizations around the world. As such, the name of a tank can be an important part of the marketing and branding strategy of the producer. A catchy or memorable name can help to generate interest in the tank and make it more appealing to potential buyers. Another factor that can influence the naming of tanks is the intended use of the tank. Tanks can be designed for a variety of different purposes, such as heavy combat, reconnaissance, or support. The name of a tank may reflect its intended use, emphasizing its strengths and capabilities. For example, the American M2 Bradley infantry fighting vehicle is named after General Omar Bradley, a U.S. Army officer who played a key role in the Allied victory in World War II. The name infantry fighting vehicle emphasizes the tank's role in supporting infantry troops on the ground. Finally, the political and cultural context in which the tank is produced can also play a role in its naming. For example, tanks produced in countries with a strong national identity may be named after symbols or historical figures that are important to that identity. Similarly, tanks produced during wartime may be given names that are meant to inspire patriotism or evoke a sense of national pride. Cultural symbols can play a significant role in the naming of tanks, particularly in countries with a strong national identity. Tanks are often viewed as symbols of a country's military strength and technological prowess, and their names can reflect this symbolism. In some cases, tanks are named after historical figures, landmarks, or other symbols that are important to a country's culture or history. For example, the Russian T-72 tank is named after the year 1972, which marks the 60th anniversary of the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia. The Israeli Merkava tank is named after a Hebrew word meaning chariot or carriage, which evokes the idea of the tank as a modern-day chariot of war. The German Leopard 2 tank is named after the leopard, which is a symbol of strength and agility. In addition to these examples, tanks may also be named after other cultural symbols, such as mythical creatures, animals, or even popular cultural references. For example, the Japanese Type 10 tank is named after the Chinese zodiac sign for the year 2010, which is the year that the tank was introduced into service. Overall, cultural symbols can be a powerful influence on the naming of tanks, and they can help to reinforce a country's national identity and pride in its military capabilities. Tanks named after cultural symbols do not have any inherent special significance in warfare beyond their symbolic value. However, the symbolism of a tank's name can have a psychological impact on both the soldiers who operate the tank and the enemy forces they are facing. For example, tanks named after powerful animals or legendary figures can evoke a sense of strength and intimidation, both for the soldiers who operate the tank and for the enemy forces they are facing. This can help to boost morale and instill a sense of pride in the soldiers who operate the tank, and it can also make the tank a more formidable opponent in battle. On the other hand, tanks named after cultural symbols that are associated with peace or nonviolence may be seen as less intimidating or aggressive. In some cases, this may be intentional as a way of signaling a commitment to using military force only as a last resort or in self-defense. Overall, the significance of a tank's name in warfare depends largely on the cultural and psychological context in which the tank is being used. While the name of a tank may not have a direct impact on its performance in battle, it can play a role in shaping the attitudes and perceptions of the soldiers who operate the tank and the enemy forces they are facing. Cultural symbols of tanks can vary significantly across different countries and cultures, reflecting the unique histories, values, and traditions of each nation. Some common themes and symbols that are associated with tanks include strength, power, and military might, but the specific symbols and names used can vary widely depending on the cultural context. For example, in the United States, tanks are often named after military leaders or historical figures who are seen as symbols of American strength and leadership, such as the M1 Abrams tank, which is named after General Creighton Abrams. In Russia, tanks are often named after historical events or symbols of Russian power and might, such as the T-90 tank, which is named after the T-72 tank, which in turn was named after the Ural Mountains. In some cultures, tanks may be named after animals or mythical creatures that are seen as powerful or revered, such as the Chinese Type 99 tank, which is named after the year 1999, and the South Korean K-2 Black Panther tank, which is named after the Black Panther. In other cultures, tanks may be named after symbols of peace or nonviolence, such as the Japanese Type 10 tank, which is named after the Chinese zodiac sign for the year 2010, and the Swedish Stridsvagn 122 tank, which is named after the Swedish word for battle wagon. Overall, the cultural symbols of tanks reflect the diversity and complexity of human culture, and they provide a window into the values, traditions, and histories of different nations and peoples.